Hello, and welcome to Guys Dealings with Feelings, a podcast focused on men's health and emotional awareness. Jason, a licensed therapist with over 18 years of experience, and I, being profoundly affected by the death of my son, share grounded conversations and practical insights to help men navigate modern life with clarity and intention. Morning, Jason.
Hey man,
How you
good
doing?
morning. I'm all right, man.
All right.
Sidetrack.
So we're going to try to tackle emotional numbness today. And you and I can kind of get into the nitty gritty. Before I get started, I want this is something that really affected me most of my life, really, until I kind of went through all this stuff after Joel, really over the last 5 years. So, kind of getting in touch with all that. I think this probably goes hand in hand with emotional awareness. Um, but we did an episode on emotional awareness earlier in the season. I just think that a lot of times it's misplaced, misunderstood, versus not having it at all. I'm not saying that people can't not have them at all, but a lot of times I think we feel emotionally numb when really we're disconnected and we don't really know what the emotions are. But for a lot of men, they've stopped feeling much of anything at all. Like I'm talking about, no excitement, no deep sadness, no real connection, just kind of existing, going through the motions. And emotional numbness can be confusing because on the outside, everything looks normal. You're functioning, working, taking, talking to people, showing up, but internally it feels like something's gone quiet. So today we're going to talk about emotional numbness, what it is, why it happens, and why people slowly disconnect from themselves without even realizing it. So emotional numbness being a disconnection from emotions, flatness, emptiness, and detachment. It doesn't have to be sadness. A lot of my issue was always Uh, it was either anger or just not anger. That's how I knew I wasn't really I didn't feel like it was numb. I just felt like I didn't have many emotions because it was just the one, and lack of. I get that some maybe and you can decipher this for us, some people who go through some serious trauma, and we'll get into it a little later, how that can affect the body and a response would be to just shut everything the fuck down. But can you navigate that a little bit for us?
Yeah. Uh,
And do they show signs of the same do they kinda show out the same way?
do what? Show out the same
So if
way.
like I'm saying, I before I went through Joel dying, so before my major trauma, which again, we've all go through little traumas through life, but before the major trauma, I just had anger and not anger. It felt
Yeah,
very
I got you. I got you.
emotionally numb
Yeah.
versus
I'm,
somebody who, I don't know, suffers some
mhm.
physical abuse or
Yeah.
traumatic brain injury or some shit like that, and they are no shit numb. So there's a deviation there? I Is that appropriate to say, or they're kind of the same? What Am I making any sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. Yeah. Totally makes sense. Generally, uh, where I like to start essentially is to focus on the word trauma. Right. So, what the word trauma is reflecting, right? We still have some deep misunderstandings around it. But what the word is referring to is a natural function of life, right? So just like we were talking about last time, uh, our body is made to let things go, and it's also made to hold on to things to be able to digest it later, right? That's a natural function of our system, right? And um, and then like we talked about last week, it becomes we don't know how to process, and so all of us begin to have this backlog of information that we need to process, right? So in our lived experience, there we experience thoughts, feelings, and sensations, right? Most people, a really simple way to describe what's going on is we don't know the difference between a thought and a feeling. It's a really straightforward way to say it. So, somebody says, I feel like I don't deserve that, right? But there's no such thing as a feeling like I don't deserve that, right? So what the person is describing is a difficult sensation and feeling that's tied to a thought, and they're describing their feelings as thoughts, and we don't really recognize when that's happening. So essentially, we've just been cut off from the dimension of sensations and feelings in the body because the primary mode of our experience now has become thinking about the past. So we've just been cut off from that region for a very long time. And when we're cut off from that region, we have no agency. We don't know what we're feeling. All we know is what we're thinking and how we're interpreting things that are happening. And when we can't feel and process, that simultaneously begins to cause our system to hold on to energy is really the way to say
The
it.
feelings that they're not experiencing are just building. It's just emails
It's just
coming in and
building.
nobody's reading them.
Yep. Yeah. Because anytime we're feeling something, we're just thinking about it. We're thinking about how not to feel it. Or we're thinking about what happened to make me feel it. Like, why am I feeling this? So that's generally what happens. So we end up thinking about what's happened instead of being directly with what we're feeling at the level of sensation and feeling.
The actual feelings.
The actual sensations and feelings in the body.
Yeah. I, to touch on what you were going through, how, some of the ways we've gotten there have been societal uh, pushes, whatever, however you say it. Men being taught to push through and stay strong. Emotion, they bury your emotions, decrease vulnerability, quote unquote. It really increases it. And eventually, awareness of emotions, just like Jason said, it just fades away. And now all you're doing is thinking. And some of the signs of it are loss of excitement, disconnection in relationships, lack of motivation, feeling emotionally distant, and going through routine without presence. So just kind of going through the day. You could do it with your eyes closed because you're doing it every day. And that's where I think this is. Hopefully, we catch people in those feelings because after that, it gets into the real bad shit: isolation, hopelessness, meaninglessness, and you're in the suicide range, which we've talked about the statistics, and the shit's ridiculous. The way it's going, and so this is happening, and it is. Oh, that's not me, and I think a lot of times it's I don't have time to mess with that. Is probably something that a lot of guys will say, "Oh, I ain't got time. I ain't
It's
got
even
time to
more
deal with that
subtle than
shit."
that, man.
Do what?
Yeah, it's even more subtle than that. It's even more subtle than that. So
Oh,
I would say the majority of people that I spend time with, and this would, I mean, almost everybody, and it relates to my own life too, right? Um, 'Cause, if I was to say to people, it's not natural for us to go through a day and be stuck in the head so much. That means that something's out of balance. But most people identify that as a personality characteristic. So I hear things like, "I'm an anxious person," pretty regularly. Or I hear things like, "My brain was, going crazy," like we're walking brains. So, both of those just reflect, the misunderstandings that we have. Fine if a person doesn't um, identify with anything that again that's related to that word trauma. But if you remember what I said about that word, it's deeply misunderstood. And if somebody can't identify any sort of traumas that they went through, that's fine. Again, it's not about that. Uh, but if you just look at your day to day lived experience, and if it's primarily through thinking, right, then that means there's some imbalances in your system and imbalances in your nervous system. You're not aware of things at the level of feeling and sensation, and so you're continually stuck in the head, stuck in thinking patterns.
and I think that before before I would have noticed I'm thinking all the time. because again, I don't
Mhm.
think the
You don't
differential
notice.
has happened, yeah, so it hasn't happened. But I do think I'm not excited about things. I don't feel as connected to my buddies and my wife as I once did. I'm not. I have no motivation. I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. It never changes. Stage one. And stage two, shit really gets serious. Hopelessness, isolation, meaninglessness. And then we're like, oh fuck, and we're panicky. And then we're thinking all the time. This whole time we've just been thinking about, where is it coming from is I think a appropriate way that you said. And then you're like, oh fuck, and my life's falling apart. And you're like, how did I even get here? And it's you've been on the hamster wheel. Meanwhile, they've been unplugging you from yourself or plugging things in so you're not in tune with yourself. And this is not um, the thought processes that Jason and I talk about a lot of times are not necessarily conducive to showing up to a factory. They could be. You can totally be happy and show up to a factory every morning. So if you show up to a factory every morning and you're hearing this, we're not trying to discourage you, but the thoughts that we're talking about are going to go deeper, and you're going to be searching for more meaning and purpose and things like that, where showing up and giving everything you've got to somebody else for them to make more money just isn't really in line with what you're going to be thinking and part of the process. So I say that to say we've been pushed away from what we're talking about for a very in there was a purpose, and the purpose remains. And we've talked about it in other episodes, but my fear is that, to your point, that it's such a it's kind of silent, and then it starts showing up in these ways, and then you start the thinking and the overthinking, and then the repetitive, and where we're stuck in these cycles, and the brain's going to places we can't even reason. And all the while we just think we're getting up and going to work. I'm doing what I've been told to do. That's what my dad told me to do. That's what my mom told me to do. That's what I watched happen, whatever. And now I feel this way. And then to your point, it's people will begin to identify themselves with some of the
Yeah.
feelings they've learned about. What- and so they don't. There's no slowing down to just feel the shit. And then, oh, what label do I want to give that? And I think that's the big deal that's going to go with this is this being the episode. If you're having these feelings of distance and isolation and all this negative shit that you don't want to feel, the 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 bottom line is you got to slow down and start to feel it. And then we can start with the awareness and the identification, and then how healthy responses to it, and then how to process out of it. But as long as you're going 100 miles an hour or even 55 and not slowing the fuck down, then you're just going to keep seeing the negative results of not doing it. So, Jason talking about your email, I called it email. Jason talking about the shit piling up
That's a
on
good
you,
way to say
the
it.
references and email box being full, and it just continues to get more and more full because you're not checking any, you're like, what email box?
Yeah.
And as
You
long as you're
know,
there, it ain't going to
yeah.
progress or
And
get better.
let me add a little bit to what you're saying there. What if I was to say that at the very core for everybody, like it doesn't matter, it's a universal thing. At the core of everybody's suffering is the fact that we are not connected to ourselves at all levels. That is the literal source of our suffering. We can't be here. We can't be in this life. We can't be in this body. Now, we can't identify that as the nature of our suffering, the fact that we can't be here in this body. The mind says what we're looking for is always somewhere else. Our experience tells us that the information that we're looking for is in the past. The life we're looking for is in the future, right? And the source of our suffering is a lack of connection to now. And that's because we're not connected at the level of feeling and sensation. And when we get connected to that level fully, deeply, that's where maturity emerges, groundedness, purpose, meaning. because purpose and meaning are inherent in our birth. And so simplicity emerges. So you might get up and go work wherever, but you're already full. You're full of the morning. You're full of the coffee that you drank, you know? You're
Mhm.
completely full. You're taking it all in, you know? And you're taking yourself in. You're taking all of yourself in as much as you can handle, right? And that is where purpose emerges. Because again, purpose is inherent in our birth. Has nothing to do with where we go. I mean, really though, I'm not, not to say there's well, I don't know. It's just a judgment. I would just be making a judgment on the idea of, going and doing your own thing. I don't know. Because again, once this level of our experience, once we evolve into this level, because it's the direction that everybody's moving into, whether we know it or not, it's just the truth of what's happening. That's life is always calling us back to ourselves, back home, back in here, you know? Um, and so, yeah, then, the things that might have, that's really how it works. The things that were causing us so much confusion and suffering in life, right? Like the job or the relationship, or this seemed like it was the job or the money or the relationship. But we find out it wasn't those things. We
Mhm.
find out it was because we weren't connected to the truth of our experience, We weren't
Yeah, I
here.
would say just working through the whole job thing in my mind as you're talking, it seems like, we're trained, and really that's what it is, by society to find purpose in work. That's our meaning. We provide for so men
One
specific.
one huge place that we've been taught that that's where it is, yeah.
Yeah, just that's
Especially as men.
yeah, providers. We are providers. How do we provide? We trade our time for money, and then we buy the shit for our family: food, shelter, transportation, depending on how much you make, vacations, etc. And then you go through a process of awakening, and you find that your purpose is something else. I would say usually in helping others. If you're already a nurse or
It's
doctor,
more
you probably already have that sensation in your work life. But if you're, again, we're making widgets, we don't necessarily feel like we're helping anybody. So now we feel more helped. You might find yourself more in tune with church or community group, getting yourself involved with community, somewhere where you can mentor somebody else. Things like that will begin to show themselves. And so uh, you you don't find your purpose any longer in the providing of the family for the family. The purpose is found in everything that you go through during the day. So it's found while drinking coffee, to Jason's point. And so you're fulfilled in the drinking of the coffee. It's found in the morning walk. When you show up to work, you find it there in your friends that you've made at work at the 20 years you've been there. But at the end of the day, at the end of the week, when you get the paycheck, that's not where you find it anymore. So you can continue along the same lines, but the feeling of lack of fulfillment because you're searching for fulfillment through the work is going to be present until you find that it ain't there that you're going to find it. And it's not for buying stuff for your kids, or even if that stuff is food. Um, I
just
think that
because it
there
feels
is.
good doesn't mean it's the point.
Right. And I think that there's definitely space when you bring a child into this world, you need to keep them fed and sheltered. I believe in that. I think that that's the kind of the natural thing we're supposed to do, is make sure that they've got till they're able to fly. We keep them covered and fed, and even afterwards, if we need to keep them covered and fed. But I, as far as that's our only reason for being here, that's the flaw. And I think when we get stuck in that, we head down this path we're talking about. It lands us in some form of numbness or lack of awareness, lack of connection. And in that, we begin to find the negatives that I keep listing, which end up in isolation and really in a dark place. That, how the fuck did I get here? I was just trying to put shelter over my kid's head and food in their belly. But it's you've ignored yourself for 20 years, 40 years, 50
Yeah.
years. You've had
You
0 connection.
you said something that's so powerful. So, uh, what I can say in my experience is there is this urge to take care of everybody. I want to care for everybody. I want to provide and care for everybody around me, right? It's deeply embedded. It's like a sense of duty. The issue is, so in the past, that wasn't available to me fully. I could not take care of others because I was too busy avoiding myself. And I can talk about all the ways that shows up in a relationship, but in essence, I was too busy trying to avoid what needed to be addressed. And that energy of avoiding that and repressing that and distracting from that and numbing that and finding relief from that took up all my energy, really. I didn't know that, or I took up the vast majority of my energy, know that. And then what happened when all that started to get attention, one of the things specifically that started to come online is being able to be there for others in a more potent way. It it increased my capacity of service, in any given moment, right? Instead of taking something being said personal in the kitchen, I might be able to look past it and move towards my partner and know, but it's not about me. It's just something. You know what I'm trying to say?
Mhm.
So to me, that's how pivotal and crucial it is. Because the way I relate to being in a male body is a deep sense of duty, a deep orientation towards protection, deep, you know, a deep orientation towards service and providing, protecting. Um, and I didn't know really that much of my struggle was because that version of myself really wasn't available.
We're swimming upstream.
I didn't know the gap between this version of myself and this version of myself. The gap in between that was things I don't want to do and uncomfortable feelings.
Discomfort.
I didn't know that was the gap. And so, and you can, and so the body is the key to that gap. Meaning getting back in touch with the level of feelings and sensations, which is getting back in touch with the reason why we're not ever really here. And then we can be there for people in a way, but you know it. It's already it's a part of your experience in a way. That's like specifically what would have come online more for
Mhm.
you. More responsibility with money. And your relationship with everything changes.
Everything. It's
Everything.
magnificent. It's magnificent, and
You
and
become more of a steward,
it's
a
whole
leader.
it's hard to
Leadership emerges.
yeah, it's so hard to, quantify. I mean, just tell people I'm happier, and that doesn't do it. Well, I'm more present and more aware, and that doesn't do it. But when
Freer.
I can tell an individual who spreads themselves thin. We have a couple of friends who, live this life where they're spread so thin and that, "Well, I've gotta do this and I've gotta do that." Well, you're not doing worth a fuck for anybody because you're running at about 65, maybe 70%. Whereas if you become whole, the time that you spent getting from 70% to 100% pales in comparison to the massive gain and output that you gain in going from 70 to 100. And it's just very hard to get across. It's hard to show, and you know, after you do a bunch of the work and it begins to show up, it's very exciting, and you think, well, it didn't take that long, but if you look back, it was a lot of work. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but 5 years is a long time. Actually, we're at 6 years now where I've really kicked in all the things that I talk about in my book and stuff, where I put all these things into practice. And so, that is a long
That's
time,
funny
and
too, because
it's
my time frame is like 6, 7 years too.
yeah, um,
2019.
yeah. 2020 is when really things kind of kicked off for me, and going through a divorce and all that. And, it it just now who I am, I'm a completely different human being. I and I'm able to my output is so much better in all the things Jason was talking about in work, in protector and provider, in partner, in friend. Like all of those things have done nothing but get exponentially better, not a little bit better. Then, hey, I don't have a relationship with some people I've had a relationship with in the past. That's okay. I'm all right with that too. Whatever. It's all good, man. I hope
Yeah,
everybody's doing good. I just want everybody to be happy
yeah,
and
right. And you
me included, and
yeah,
that's what I'm
and
focused
that's the
on.
point. At the heart of this, man, I have to say it because it's true, and so I'll spend the rest of my life saying it. There's a in this culture, anything spiritual is loaded, right? Whether it's someone who, man, is very dogmatic, like they know, right? Everybody else doesn't. Rampant agnosticism or atheism. That's like these are all just words. So, but in reality, what we're talking about are getting back in touch with this dimension of our experience. It has spiritual implications, period. And this is information that humans have known for a very long time. It's just many of us are so closed off, we're so closed um, that the light cannot reach us. The truth cannot penetrate. So that to me is the deepest implication. And again, this is information that's well known among humans. So the idea that the root of our suffering is that we're not connected to now, we're not connected to the reality of our experience, right? That is well known. That's a well known uh, dynamic here. What we call ego, we relate to it as like an entity, like a false identity
Mhm.
or something. It's not, it's describing our tendency to not be here. Always go to the character in the past and future. Always go into story. That's what it's referring to. Ego is referring to a dynamic, right? And so when, as the awakening process happens, it's not that our identity goes away, it's that a sense of separation goes away. That we're separate from life and all everybody else, we're so different. You know what I'm trying to say? That just vanishes.
That piece there was the nature piece for me.
Yeah.
That's where the connection that real connection was made in my mind, that, was out in nature,
Okay, but let
and it
me let
was
me let me let me challenge that a little bit. Did not being in nature evoke something in your interiority?
yeah, that's where I learned about it's what I'm saying, is
That's but
being
that
in
but
nature. I had a
and you learned
connection.
about in here
Yeah, well,
as
yeah, I
being in
learned
nature.
yeah, being in nature, the connection and the healing that occurred was like, "Oh, fuck, there's more shit going on." And that occurred during the walks, which comes with the physical stuff that goes with it. I mean, I
Yeah,
go through
yeah,
all this
yeah.
stuff, but that connection,
Even
that
the bilateral
aha
movement is a
moment
thing.
happened to me. Yeah, it happened. The trigger flipped for me in spending time in nature because nature has the ability to humble you and connect because you're part of it. You connect right up. Um, the calmness and the
It's
awareness,
the
everything just kind of maximizes there. And then the more you do it, the more practice it happens, the more healing it is, et cetera. And it was just so powerful. And that's I constantly push back. I no longer push back on spirituality for this because of this little short discussion we're having here. I push back on religion very hard, but on uh, spirituality itself, there's more going on. And now I'm more connected to, well, it is animals maybe fucking around with some consciousness too. I mean, my dog clearly
yeah. You,
shows
you know
signs
what?
of emotional
And
emotions.
and you know what's interesting? All you have to do is like measure the results. So in your experience, it's fine if, we use the word spirituality, and again, all these words are loaded, but for whatever reason, that word seems to, represent some degree of openness, right? And, I don't know, it seems like you're describing the results that equal, like, connection to everything, that,
Mhm.
respect for everything, right?
Right.
A feeling of kinship with everything. So, you can debate all you want. To me, that's just like in the results.
The proof's in the
It's
pudding.
just like
Yeah.
it's proofs to the push. And then if you speak with another fellow human being that's stuck in that dogmatic "I know and I'm right," they're in pain. They are suffering. They are terrified because they're confused, and it is terrifying to be confused. You know, uh,
And it's so crazy because you don't feel confused. You feel like you got it all locked down and it's everything else that's confused. And that's why it's
but you're
such a
hateful,
trap.
angry,
Yeah, yeah, no, the
agitated,
signs are all there. Yeah,
judgmental,
100%.
right?
Yeah, 100%.
Judgmental,
The signs are there.
arrogant. Yeah,
But you in your head, the thoughts, the thinking, you feel like
yeah, I'm right.
I got this shit figured out. I've just got to figure out how to get this square hole
And convince everybody
rounded out
else to the same thing.
and that
But
everybody else is fucking up.
when when somebody's off, when they're really interested in consensus, when they have a lot invested in convincing you of something, and they're frustrated if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, now I know exactly
I'm
what you're
not.
talking about.
Hey, the truth does not need backing up. I have no interest in debating. I'm not. It's look, if you're not ready for the information, you're not ready for the information. That's just the evolutionary place that you're at. I love you. It's all good. I love you to death. I have so much compassion for you. I'm here for you. If you want information, I promise I can give it to you. You know, and the reason that information can be given is grace. It's grace is why the information can be given, right? And so, right, isn't it? It's so paradoxical, and how we get stuck in that righteous knowing
Yeah. Yeah, and a
it's
lot of
brutal.
what I say, and I think you say it too, is so much we don't know at this point that we realize now we don't know shit. I don't know anything, and I feel very comfortable in that space.
So the most enlightened characters on the planet would make a statement such as the most stable place to be is in unknowing. That's what's true. Now, I take that a step further and say, actually, what's being said there is being in the field of knowing we're supported and everything's working out for us, no matter if it's painful. There's no such thing as mistakes. There are no such thing as errors. Now, that is just a evolutionary place that we come to. Again, I'm not working. I wouldn't spend time convincing someone of that truth. I just would love them. What I don't, do you know what I'm trying to say? We come to it in our own time.
Yeah. It's it the whole thing, how it comes together is, wild, but it all
Yeah,
begins with this emotional awarening feeling. So, kind of the fix we'll throw out is to slowly start to reconnect, really, create a space for emotions instead of
with
forcing them.
with thoughts, sensations, thought patterns, images, like that is literally what you're working to connect with. Those three things: thoughts, feelings, and sensations at all three levels, because you can't release what you've been holding until you're connected at all three levels. You can't release with the mind alone. Like it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and ask yourself what you're actually feeling. Reduce your distractions. Don't run away from this stuff. Begin to spend time with it. Have honest conversations with self, with people you trust, people that are where you want to be, I guess is the best way to put it. Find others who are where you want to be and discuss it with them and be open and honest about it. That's all part of it as well. And spend time reflecting and reconnecting. It's uh, this is going to be, we talk about this of the body, we are gauged to dodge discomfort. You know, we're we're going into an emotional thing. So sadness is coming, anger's coming, grief is coming, uh, some uncomfortable shit is going to present itself. But uh, here's an alert: you're already experiencing negative stuff. You're already got a
You're already
problem.
feeling it.
You're already feeling like
You're
shit
already influenced by what you have been holding on to, or you're already influenced in a way we have no idea.
and dealing with discomfort. You're already
Yeah,
dealing with discomfort, and I know it's a known discomfort. You know this pain and suffering you live in. Um, but look, don't let that dissuade you. Just know that's part of it. You've got to understand that it ain't gonna be all. Everything's not gonna be absolutely amazing every single day, but highs seem higher and lows seem less low, and they don't stick around
yeah,
neither
yeah,
a ton of time. But you
yeah,
feel so good and happy, and I came from such a
yeah,
bad feeling place
yeah.
that it does feel like I'm on a high a lot of times, but really it's that's just my baseline. I was just so far from my baseline for so long that I thought my baseline was something less. And so it will all change, and the comfort does come, and man is it comfortable. And it feels way better even when there's
Yeah,
chaos around you, and
because it's real.
indecision around you, and uh, the shit around you is not going awesome. You're still all right, and you're on solid footing. You make solid decisions. You can understand what's happening instead of reacting. You can
Still
have
be
a
patient. Yeah,
good response. Yes. And so, and I'm experiencing all of these things, and I'm coming from again, angry or not angry, were the two things that I experienced in life as far as connection to my feelings. So I understand this topic very well. I think my journey navigates this. I've documented it pretty well as well. So, you can check all that stuff out. But emotional numbness is not a weakness, and it doesn't mean that you're broken. A lot of times you've adapted to something, you've shut things down because you're carrying something, a lot of heavy shit. You're dealing with heavy shit. You've been beaten down by the society in which you live. So, surviving emotionally and living emotionally are not going to be the same thing, though. And eventually there comes a point where functioning just isn't enough. You want to feel connected to yourself, to the people, and to life. And that process doesn't start with forcing happiness. It starts with slowly becoming honest about what you stopped feeling in the first place. And even then, because my shit, angry and not angry, was stretched all the way back as far as I could remember. So it could be having any feelings at all, being connected to any feelings at all. It may not be searching. It's just feeling so disconnected. Like getting away from that is that's the that's what you're being happy when you wake up, being excited about life when you wake up. What's today going to offer? You know, I, I've got. I'm in. I'm not in search of outside of me. I'm in search inside of me, and those are just so crucial. And so many of us we're not emotionless. We're just emotionally disconnected. And if we can get back to being connected to yourself and having these feelings, and life will turn around, and all these positives that Jason and I, and the reason we sit down and do this show every week with each other, and try to share with you all, is exactly that. We have found this place and we want to help. This comes from there's no monetizing. We're just trying to help and get a message out. And we hope you enjoy it. And if you do, please like, follow, and share wherever you're listening and watching it. Doing so helps us reach men who could be positively impacted by this material. And you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast, all the socials under Guys Dealings with Feelings. And as always, we thank you for giving us your time, your most valuable asset. Till next time, stay in the fight. This world is a much better place with you in it.